Happy Monday! Welcome back to Drinking by Myself. My name is Emma and today I am doing the read this instead of that video. Oh, I wrote such a long list. I have so many books here. Hang on. Oh no. So I have decided to cut it here. This is going to be the end of part 1. Instead of The Testaments by Margaret Atwood, you should read Only Ever Yours by Louise and Neale. So this is a straight up retelling of The Handmaid's Tale. But if you're wanting more Handmaid's Tale stuff, The Testaments is not really worth your time. I thought it was fine. I thought it was like a good story, but I couldn't believe it was written by the same person as The Handmaid's Tale. It was just like nowhere near as deep or interesting as The Handmaid's Tale was. It was just like a YA action plot. So if you want more Handmaid's Tale world vibes, skip that one and just read Only Ever Yours by Louise O'Neill. This is a really clever retelling which is set in this school where young girls are brought up to be either concubines or companions, so like wives versus handmaidens, and only the men choose which women are worth which role. So it is very, very similar to The Handmaid's Tale in terms of the world in which it's set, but the characters themselves are brand new. And this is a very modern retelling, so it kind of refocuses the feminist issues to be really relevant to contemporary issues. Instead of To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper, which everyone had to read at school, and it's good, I liked it, but it was fun. Instead of that, read Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. This is a much better book. So they share some of the same plot elements. We have like an unjust trial, for example. They share themes like racism, but this book is a lot more nuanced and complex and like every bit as compelling. So our main character here is a woman called Janie, who we get to learn her whole life story and her 3 different marriages and the kind of life lessons that she discovers from each one, I guess. But it's really moving. This is actually the book that inspired The Colour Purple by Alice Walker, which is also a brilliant, brilliant book. And you can really tell, you can really see some of the themes here that inspired Alice Walker. It's a sad book though, like geez. And another one where I actually loved both books, I gave A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara 5 stars. I thought it was brilliant, but it is incredibly sad and not everyone wants to read it because it's like 800 pages long and it's got so much traumatic content in it. So if you don't want to read it, fine. Instead, you could read The Heart's Invisible Furies by Boyne. Quick little note coming in from the future, just because I do talk in this video about 2 authors, Boyne, who I just mentioned, and later in the video I'm going to mention Chimamanda and Ngozi Adichie, and both of these authors have had controversies for saying things that have been slightly transphobic, or very transphobic. So Boyne defended J.K. Rowling, and Chimamanda and Ngozi Adichie, hers was a few years ago, and she has apologised for it, but in an interview she was talking about how she sees the difference between cis women and trans women, and the language that she used was seen as quite offensive. You guys know I have completely stopped supporting J.K. Rowling, and so I wanted to cover why I'm still promoting the work of these 2 authors and why that feels different. And I don't know if I have the right approach to this, so feel free to leave me a comment if you don't think I have it right. But where I'm at the moment, I will first and foremost will not stand for transphobia in any way and do not want to support any author who is spreading dangerous transphobic ideology. And the reason that J.K. Rowling, to me, I find what she's done so upsetting is because of the power that she has, the platform she has, and the way in which she is actively using that platform to spread hate and to spread dangerous ideology. Boyne I know less about, so I don't have much to say here. I'll just say about Chimamanda and Ngozi Adichie that I think that was quite a different situation. Hers seemed more about using the wrong terminology, and she said that it's just to do with certain words not being in her vocabulary. And to me, I just feel like I want to be careful about being kind of elitist and like academic in my feminism. I did a women's studies degree at university, so the fact that these words are in my terminology and in my vocabulary and understanding is a privilege that I spent that year like at Oxford getting this amazing education, and so it doesn't feel right for me to look down on somebody who doesn't have the right words when I don't think the message that she was sending was supposed to be hurtful. I don't think it had bad intentions. I think she just used the wrong vocabulary. And also she doesn't have the same platform that J.K. Rowling has, and she is not trying to use it to push any agenda or to spread any dangerous messages. She was asked a question in an interview that she responded to. So that's why I view them as different. I am not standing here and putting my foot down and saying I'm right. I'm really open to hearing any feedback, but I just wanted to comment on it because that was 2 authors in one video that I mentioned and promoted their books, even though I know they have said things that have been really hurtful to the trans community in the past, and I don't want this channel to be a place where trans people don't feel safe and supported. So that's my quick little note. Not that quick, I've been talking for like 3 minutes now, but on with the rest of the video, and do let me know if you think I haven't got this right. Both of these stories tell the entire life story of a gay man and his group of friends and the different periods of his life that he lives through. They are both very sad, they'll both make you cry, but The Heart's Invisible Furies is told with a lot of humour as well. It's like dark humour, and there's lots of happiness and hope in it as well. So whereas this book is just like sad, 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 but brilliant, but sad, 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 The Heart's Invisible Furies is like a manageable version of that. I do really recommend them both though. This one is kind of unfair because I haven't read Normal People and I do want to read it, but instead of reading Normal People, you should read Americanah by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. From what I understand, both of these books are about a couple, separated but in love with each other and growing up their separate paths. Americanah mostly follows the woman. She is called Ifemelu and she leaves Nigeria during the university strikes and moves to the States and starts her life there. Meanwhile, her boyfriend Abinze moves to England and actually ends up living there undocumented, and they have these very, very different experiences and different lives. I haven't read Normal People, I'm sure it's great, but what this one has that I imagine Normal People doesn't have is a very interesting perspective on race in the States, specifically race from the perspective of a non-American black woman. So she grew up in Nigeria and never considered herself black, like never thought about race in that way, and then moved to the States and suddenly like discovers that she is black. And all of that was really interesting. She actually writes a blog with her observations on race, so it's really educational in that way, which I imagine Normal People I don't think has anything to do with race. Instead of The Circle by Dave Eggers, which I actually bloody loved, but times have moved on since I read it and I'm not sure if it would be as like cutting right now, read Little Eyes by Samanta Schweblin. So both of these books are like technological dystopias. The Circle is set in a company that's basically Google, and our main character gets a job there and gets sucked into this whole world where they are just completely taking away anybody's privacy, and there's a lot of like looking at mob mentality, and it's, at the time I read it, it felt really, really relevant, and a lot of the things in the book have since come true, which is creepy, but also I think that because they've come true, if you read the book for the first time now, you'd just be like, this is just life, maybe. I don't know, I haven't reread it. But Little Eyes feels like the next, it feels like its predecessor. No. Ancestor. No. What's the word? Successor? I don't know what word I'm looking for. It comes next. It's the natural next book to read. So in Little Eyes, they have invented this little toy that becomes like such a massive craze. It's these little animals that have wheels and they have cameras for eyes, and anytime you buy one, you are then like hooked up to the server, and you can either buy the actual little creature and have it in your house, or you can pay to be the person on the other end who operates the camera. So if you have one in your house, it will just move around and it's being controlled by somebody else who is looking through the camera and can see you. And people choose to be either the keeper or the dweller, whether you like the idea of having a little companion in your house but you don't know who's watching you, or whether you like the idea of being like a voyeur into somebody else's life. And it was very creepy, the things that happen, but what I really liked about this book is that it's not about some great like grand scale dystopian nightmare. It's all very individual stories. Like nothing major happens. People don't use these toys for like terrorist attacks, and they talk about that in the book. It's more about the individual subtle ways people can use these to hurt each other and also hurt themselves, like inadvertently, by doing these. It just felt very real and very relevant to, for example, the way we use social media and how we end up invading each other's lives to such a strong extent and becoming so addicted to social media and feeling like so much of our value and worth is on it. All of that, but like with creepy little panda toys. And finally, instead of reading The Haunting of Hill House by, what's her name who wrote it? She's famous. Shirley Jackson, of course that's her name. Instead of reading The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson, you should read White is for Witching by Helen Oyeyemi, So both of these books have creepy haunted house vibes, if that's what you're looking for. They both are maybe not quite what you would expect from a haunted house novel, but this one I just thought was a lot more interesting. I really loved the TV show, the Netflix show of Haunting of Hill House. I thought it was really clever, but I had actually read the book first and was like, wow, this TV show has nothing to do with this, other than that it has characters with the same names, but the characters are not playing the same characters. Like, it's just a totally different story, and it was a much more interesting story than the original one. The original one is about a group of people who come to this house, Hill House, to discover if it does have weird supernatural goings on. And it's kind of cool in that it's ambiguous as to whether the house is actually haunted or it's just about the characters' psychological states. And that was very much true of the TV show as well. So it was cool, but I gave it like a 3-star. It didn't really scare me, and it just wasn't that interesting. Right is for Witching, however, by Helen Oyeyemi, is a very weird and wonderful haunted house story. Helen Oyeyemi writes very, very strange books. Be warned before you pick them up. They are bizarre. I happen to love them, but I also have to read them all like twice before I get them. The first time through I'm like, what just happened? And the second time through I'm like, whoa, that was cool. So this is about this creepy house on the cliffs of Dover, which, like, the house itself is a character and is like a narrator in the book, and it's really possessive of the women that live there and never let them go. So we kind of learn about these generations of women who have been haunted and held captive by the house. Our main character is a girl called Miranda, who starts to suffer from, I've forgotten the word for it, that disorder, pica, where you eat things that aren't food, so she starts like eating chalk, and she is kind of slowly being consumed by the house. But like the whole way through you're not entirely sure what's happening, so that gave me the same vibes as Haunting of Hill House, where you're a bit like, what's going on? It's just that in that one I just like didn't know what was going on, whereas in this one I didn't know what was going on, but beautifully so. Cool. I've been talking for like 45 minutes at this point, so I'm going to end there. I do have a few more books on my list, but I think these were the best ones to talk about, and I've just like run out of the ability to talk at this point. But do leave me a comment if you have any examples that you've read of books with really weirdly similar vibes or plots, where you thought one of them was a lot better than the other. And do go and watch April's original version of this video. It will be linked below. And I will see you next time. Cheers!